mobile games bad.
Wow, Sal, I bet he owns an Xbox.
But really, mobile games aren't bad all the time. Let me explain. Does this look familiar to you? That's right, this is every mobile game nowadays. They're all some variation of this. They're all the same bull. Of course, that's complete hyperbole, but when my friends and I were talking, trying to come up with good ones so I could write the script, the only ones that we could come up with were Pokemon Go and Raid Shadow Legends. Every once in a while, I'll see an ad for a mobile game that kinda looks cool, so I'll download it, and it'll be barely fun for about 5 minutes, but then it's just riddled with ads, and the developers are trying to get you to pay any amount of money for them to put the most minimal effort in. Ooh, it's green. Cool. I do, however, think that most people are a little bit too quick to just jump on that mobile games bad train. There are some genuinely good mobile games out there. The problem just comes when you're trying to compare them to console and PC games as a means to show that they suck. Like, yes, obviously, this is better than this, but using that kind of logic is like saying, oh, dodgeball is just better than Sudoku. They're different things. Okay, to be fair, there are plenty of good mobile games out there, just not too many coming out now, as far as I can tell at least. Most of the great mobile games that I remember come from what I call the golden age of the App Store. I remember seeing an early iPod Touch commercial and thinking, this looks cool, and then not thinking much about it afterwards. That all changed when my mom got one of these. This is an iPhone 3GS, and to a 9-year-old in the 2000s, this was the coolest thing on the planet. Touchscreens weren't really a thing back then. I mean, the fact that the Nintendo DS had one was enough to make it the coolest thing in my house at the time, until we got this. On top of that, it had a camera. I could take pictures with a phone, and they didn't look like total ass like the Motorola Razr ones did. It was only after already establishing it as the coolest thing in my house that I discovered the App Store. Back then, my mom let my sister and I download any app onto her phone as long as it was free, and we had so much fun with a bunch of stupid-ass games, like the Zippo Lighter app. This was cool once and then never again. But back then, there was a lot more to free apps than I think there is now. Remember back in the day when there were all these great games that would have a, full version that was 99 cents, which is still a pretty great price, and then a light version that was free that still gave you tons of content, especially if you were 9? I downloaded way too many of these. Anyways, my mom's iPhone got me hooked, and so my sister and I started saving up for iPod Touches. After what felt like maybe 10 years of saving our money, but it was probably just a couple months, my sister and I were each able to get an 8GB second generation iPod Touch. Sucks by today's standards, but again, cool if you're 10. Now, my mom's iPhone was great, but this is really where I went crazy on the App Store. I recently scrolled back through my earliest purchases on the App Store, and I was filled with a good taste in nostalgia and a heap of cringe. I also learned that I've had Netflix downloaded on my device since August 2010. I was in 5th grade then. I just graduated college. But the main thing I saw was a bunch of old games that I remember pretty fondly. So let's check out a couple of those games that I played back then and answer 3 questions. 1, are they still good today? 2, if they are still good today, why? And 3, why do I look back on this 2009 to 2013-ish era as the golden age of the App Store? Hi, this is Editing Josh. Side note, my phone is set to German, so if you see stuff on my screen recordings from the phone that are in German, they're my screen recordings. I didn't just steal them from somewhere. I probably should have thrown this one in the lightning round that I have coming up. I definitely shouldn't have put it as the first one I'm talking about, but here we are. This was the first game I ever downloaded on my iPod Touch. The full game was 99 cents, and me being broke from just having spent all my money on an iPod, I downloaded the light version. But apparently I thought it was worth it because I bought the full version a day later. As you can see, neither of these are still in the App Store, and I can't download them on my current iPhone. What I can download, or maybe just never delete it off my phone, is this game, iFighter 1945, which I'm like 99% sure is the same thing as Air Attack. They just rebranded it like a month later and made it free, so I will be pursuing the developer Epic Force to get my 99 cents back. Maybe not. Whatever. This game is a vertical shooter similar to something like Xevious. Fight your way through the stage, trying not to die, collect points and power-ups along the way, and then fight the boss at the end. It's pretty good, but there's not much to set it apart from other vertical shooters. On top of that, the controls can be pretty clunky. The touch controls feel pretty loose, but I mean completely tolerable, but this is an early iPhone game, which means that yes, you can play it with tilt controls. And they suck. Still, pretty fun today. If I got some free time, I'd open this maybe once or twice a year. I remember being in middle school and seeing a kid on the bus playing this one, and when I got home I had to download it because of course I wasn't allowed to take my iPod to school, and this was still a couple years before I got an iPhone. I still had me one of these. So yeah, I was pretty cool. This one is a 2D endless runner where you steal an experimental jetpack and have to get as far through the facility as you can while avoiding these tasers and lasers and missiles. Why do they have missiles indoors? Along the way, you can get these vehicle power-ups, which do a good job of kind of changing up the gameplay from time to time. I specifically remember the Prophet Bird, and then how you could like slam into the ground on these glass pieces here and it would shatter them. I still think that's kind of cute. For the most part, there's only one control in the game. You tap to turn on the jetpack and go higher. Of course, that changes up a little bit when you're in vehicles. When you do finally die, there's this slot machine thing at the end where you can use the tokens you collected throughout the run. I always thought if I pulled the lever right when the arrows got to the bottom here, I would always get something, but as far as I can tell, I'm stupid and that's not the case. This and the next game are my two favorite mobile games ever made. Cut the Rope is just a really great puzzle game. No other way to say that. Cut the ropes and use all the other fun little mechanics in the level that it introduces later on to get the candy to the monster Om-Nom. The controls on this one are really solid and hold up really well. I don't know how they did it. I know I'm just sliding my finger across a piece of glass, but cutting a rope feels satisfying. I love doing this. So many of the mechanics they introduce in later levels are more fun, and they help the levels get more complicated and harder as you go along. It can get frustrating at times when sometimes you gotta replay a level over and over and over just to try and get that third star, but then it feels really satisfying when you do finally get it. Where's My Water is another puzzle game that I kind of file in the same sort of folder as Cut the Rope. This one has you dig through the ground to try and get water to the alligator Swampy so he can take his shower. Along the way, try and get all 3 rubber ducks, and there are a couple extra collectibles hidden in some levels. This is another case where it's a really simple concept for the game, but a combination of just good level design and then clever mechanics, especially as you get further on in the game, add up to make this really great. I especially remember these levels with the mud that would dry out and harden into new dirt that you could then dig through to direct the flow of water. This was just clever. Also, it's really stressful to sometimes try and go for all 3 rubber ducks, but then still make sure that you have enough water to get to Swampy at the end to actually finish the level. I'm talking maybe third to last week of college semester stressful. It's not yet finals week kind of stressful, but it's getting there. This is another one where I really might be the only one who remembers this one, but I'm still going to talk about it because it's a good game. You tap the screen to throw balls at these breakable objects, you try and hit these crystal things here to get more balls, and then you try and make it as far as you can without running out of balls. I think there is a definitive ending to this game. I really don't know. I've never made it. The core gameplay is fun, it provides a good challenge, and honestly, these graphics have held up really well, especially for a over decade-old mobile game. Overall, this game makes pretty great use of the touchscreen, so I can't really see it on any platform other than mobile. Maybe PC, where you got the mouse pointer to be accurate with where you throw the balls. Maybe the Wii. But multi-touch does really help it out when there's a lot going on. Did you really think that I was going to talk about the early years of the App Store without talking about Angry Birds? Back in the day, I felt like literally everyone had this on their phone or iPod or iPad or all 3. I found this 2011 Business Insider article that says that back then, the game had already been downloaded over 500 million times. According to Wikipedia, that's more than every Madden game and every FIFA game combined. To put it another way, that's like all of the copies of Dark Souls Remastered sold for Switch times 500 million. I like being unique in my stupidity. Angry Birds proved that mobile games don't have to be just mobile games. Instead, it's ballooned to a series that has a bunch of mobile games, console ports of those mobile games, TV shows, merchandise, 2 Hollywood movies that I have not seen, and neither have you, be honest. I genuinely can't think of any one person who I could definitively say has seen either of these. I'm getting off track. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to talk about the first original Angry Birds game, which is the second game I ever downloaded on my iPod. Now, you all know how Angry Birds works already, so I won't bog you down with the details. Pigs steal eggs from birds. Birds commit pig genocide. Different birds do different things when you tap after throwing them from the slingshot. The blue ones split apart into 3 little birds, the yellow ones speed up, the black ones explode, the white ones drop exploding eggs, and the red ones that are the symbol of the whole series do nothing. I know that there are other ones that I'm forgetting, but I just don't care. This one was never my favorite mobile game, but I had a lot of fun with it back in its heyday. I just don't really see myself going back to it too much now. Side note, I paid for this game back in the day. Apparently you get ads on it now. Alright, we're into the lightning round. These are a bunch that I don't have much to say about or don't want to repeat myself too much. Doodle jump. Use tilt controls to try and jump up these randomly generated platforms. Just don't fall below the bottom of the screen or you'll die. The tilt controls actually work really well in this game. They add a little bit of challenge to it that wouldn't really be there if you were just using touch controls. Temple run. Run, jump, duck, and turn to stay away from these things that are chasing you. I never really played this one too much, but a bunch of my friends did, so I'm putting it here. This game. Osmos. This is another one where I feel like I'm going to be the only one who remembers it. But I recently replayed it, and it holds up really well. It's this kind of Zen action puzzle game. That's a horrible description. You play as an orb, try to finish each level, just go play it. Bloons Super Monkey. Bloons, and probably more famously, Bloons Tower Defense, were Flash games, which is another topic I might talk about someday. Bloons Super Monkey takes the basic style and some elements of those other games and turns it into another good vertical shooter. You can finish the whole thing in probably like 30 minutes, and then you just have to start over again, but it's still fun and I replay it every once in a while. Bloons Super Monkey 2 is still pretty good, but in my experience you have to grind a little bit too much to get upgrades. Fruit Ninja. This was another big one. Slice through the fruit, but avoid the bombs. Makes pretty good use of the touchscreen, and again, still pretty fun. Honorable mention. I didn't play them back in the day, but the Christian Whitehead versions of Sonic 1, 2, and CD are pretty great versions of those games. You can play all 3 of them for free with ads, or pay like $2 to get the full game ad-free. So far, I've only actually paid for Sonic 2, which I have played by far the most of the 3, and it is great. You can even play Hidden Palace Zone, which was cut from the original Genesis release. Sonic's playstyle works pretty great for mobile games, honestly, especially with the save feature that they added in these games that weren't in the original Genesis releases. In Sonic, you also don't have to be too precise, so it works pretty well on the touchscreen. But in addition to that, I recently learned that you can just connect a Bluetooth controller to it and play with an actual controller, so this is a pretty definitive version of these games. Also, Tetris on mobile is just a good version of Tetris that I have played way too much of. And now we come back to the 3 questions that I asked at the beginning. Number 1, are these games still good? I think that's how I phrased it. I think for the most part, yeah, going back through and playing a bunch of these, I had a lot of fun. Maybe not as much fun as I had back in the day, but honestly a lot of that is probably just because I'm a jaded, cynical 22-year-old. Question 2, why were they good? Number 1, the price was right. All of the games that I showed today were free or 99 cents, or maybe not much more than that. In-app purchases and microtransactions weren't really as big of a thing back then. They existed, but not as much. Scrolling through the top free apps today, well, you see a lot of this. All of these games are either trying to get you to give them all your money in microtransactions, or they're like 80% ads, or both. And also, what the hell? Ad-free Trivia Crack is $7 now? I got my copy of God of War for $8. Sure, it's used, but it's $1 more than ad-free Trivia Crack? Another thing I noticed in these old mobile games was they just make really good use of the iPhone's unique features. Fruit Ninja, Cut the Rope, Where's My Water, Smash Hit all make really great use of the touchscreen. And like I said, Doodle Jump uses the accelerometer or the gyroscope or whatever it uses really well for its gameplay. A couple of these eventually got ported over to consoles in some way, and honestly, they don't look like they work as well over there. They were tailor-made for mobile devices, and this is where they work best. A third thing, most of these games work pretty well for the context that you're using your phone in. You just open it up, play it for 5 minutes, and then put it down, and you're done. You don't have to sit down and play through BioShock Infinite just to say you played a good game. So finally, question number 3. Why do I consider this to be the golden age of the App Store? I will freely admit that a lot of the love I have for these games is just because I was 11 when I first played them, and playing them reminds me of some good times from back then. But in addition to that, it just kind of felt like the space of the App Store was different. Not everyone was trying to rip every dollar you had from you. There were some developers who were good just putting out good mobile games for free or for a small fee, and then they didn't ask you for more money afterwards. Seeing an ad in a mobile game back then was pretty rare. But at the end of the day, I can think of one definitive reason why this was and will always be the golden age of the App Store. And that is